Hey folks, welcome back to Markelly Farm. We wanted to sit down with you today and talk about a very important subject that we should all be thinking about is, can I get water on my homestead if there was an extended emergency? So it's a very good thing to think about, a very good thing to be prepared for. So stick around, we'll go through it. So through some of the disasters that our country has been through in not so distant past, clear back to 9/11, and the emergencies that they're dealing with out in North Carolina even as we speak, those should show you that you're going to have to be able to take care of yourself for a while, because our government's just not going to show up on your front door and help you out. It's going to be about neighbors helping neighbors and you helping yourself. So everybody knows that the Achilles heel of our United States is the electrical grid. Everything literally that we rely on relies on electricity, or computers that rely on electricity. So how hard would it be to take down our electrical grid if there was people that wish to do us harm? And you know from history that there are those people in the world. And I believe with current events, there's even people now, obviously, that are in our country that would wish to do us harm. So talking with my friends that have been working in the electrical industry for years, they say it wouldn't be very hard to knock out strategic places in our country that would keep our grid down for a very extended period of time. So we have contingencies that we've thought about here on the farm for just about everything. What we'll do with our meat and produce that's in the freezers and stuff like that if the electrical grid is down for a long time. So let's discuss some of the things that we've done, and we'll get to the water towards the end of that. So the first thing that we did is probably what many of you have done, I hope. Get a generator, because you have a lot of stuff that runs on electricity that you're still going to need to use. So we have a 12,000 watt generator here on our property that will literally run everything, including the furnace, the well, any equipment we have in the house, it'll run it. Now, that's all fine and good for a short-term emergency. Now, if we get into a little bit longer emergency where the grid's going to be down for some time, we've allowed for that as well. We got a pretty good supply of fuel for our generator. We'll start rationing our fuel if need be, only running our generator, cycling it on and off only as needed. We've got a plan for all of our refrigerated goods, where with the first few days we would concentrate on getting that stuff in a can or preserved so it would last for the long haul. We've already got a lot of stuff preserved, a lot of stuff freeze-dried. So even in a shorter term emergency, we're still good. Now, I was a Boy Scout when I was young, and one of the mottos of the Boy Scouts is be prepared. So I think about contingencies that are even further down the line. What if our electrical grid isn't down for a matter of a month, but if it's down a matter of 6 months or a year? Some of those folks out in North Carolina, they're still without power because their whole infrastructure has been knocked out, and there's not equipment just laying around to replace that. So I'm thinking now about long-term contingencies that we need here on the homestead to be able to get water. Short-term, we can run our generator and we can get water, pump up our system, fill our water storages. We're working on our water storage capacity in our basement, building that up. But if this lasts quite some time, we're one, going to run out of fuel, and then two, we're going to run out of our stored water. So then what do we do? Now, wouldn't it be nice if our windmill that was just for decoration right now on the homestead, if we had a well underneath that thing. Then we wouldn't have to worry about electricity because we could have water pumped and have a water storage tank and a cistern with that windmill, and we'd have water. We could even put an underground cistern where in the wintertime we could still have water. But until we get $10,000 that we just don't have anything else to do with, that's not an option. Now during the summer, when things aren't frozen here in Nebraska, we can catch a lot of rainwater because we have a lot of summertime thunderstorms. We have big tanks that we can store rainwater in and catch rainwater in for animals and for crops. And even for us, if need be, we'd have to filter it probably, but we know how to do that as well. But during the winter, if we don't have snow just laying on the ground that we can melt down for water, which is the case a lot of the times, we're going to need another source, and that's why we think about this stuff. Now, if you live in an area where your water table's down, say 10 feet, 15 feet, even 30 feet, you're not going to have the same issues that we have here on our homestead where our water's down minimum 150 feet. Just down the road, maybe 5 miles down by the river, their water table's really shallow, 10 feet, 5 feet, depending on how close you are to the river, and that wouldn't be a problem. And these are things that you really need to think about when setting up your homestead. One of the biggest things is water. And putting more thought into it back in the day when we looked for this place, even though we fell in love with it, if I would have made water priority one, we may not have went with this homestead as deep as our well is here. We would have gone to a place where water was more readily available. But that's something really to consider if you're thinking about moving outside of the city and starting to live on your own to where you can take care of yourself. So what are we going to do? We're going to go outside and we're going to show you what we have going on first, and then we'll show you how we're going to take care of that to where we'll still be able to get water. So if you look it up on Google, humans need about a half a gallon bare minimum of water every day to survive. So you can imagine if there's a couple of you in the house, or if you've got a whole family, you've got pets, you've got animals that you want to keep alive because they're providing food for you, that can amount to quite a bit of water per day. And you're going to run through your stored water fairly quickly. So hopefully you have a source where you can refill your capacity pretty quickly. So let's show you what we're dealing with here. So we have a standard wellhead here, 4-inch casing, and we have a submersible pump down in our well that provides our water. And we have a pressure system here on the homestead down in the basement that stores that pressure when that pump is on. So if it gets down to where we're out of electricity, we're out of fuel, our next contingency is to dip water out of this well. And it's not easily done. You're going to have to have a little preparation here and have what you need to get your submersible pump out of your well. And I'm talking, this is last ditch, gonna die type of thing if we don't get a water source. This is what we're going to have to do. So right inside this cap here, there's a 1-inch pipe fitting, female pipe, that you hook a hook to pull all of your pipe and your submersible pump out of your well, because you're not going to be able to send a dip tube down this casing without doing that. So we'll show you a picture of what that fitting looks like underneath that cap. It's just 1-inch female pipe. Now because we freeze in our area, the water can't be pumped up here to the top and down this pipe. This is our electrical coming in here, and this is just a vent. Our water pipe actually comes in 4 or 5 feet down on that well casing. Now normally you'd have what's called a pitless adapter down there that would have that 1-inch pipe fitting on top that you'd need a long T-handle in to screw into it and then pull it out. But ours is right up here up top. This is a whole system that was put in that is about 5-6 feet long that indexes everything correctly. So when you drop the fitting down in there, there's a screw you turn to run the nipple into the outlet of this pipe down there about 4 or 5 feet, and it creates a seal, whereas a normal pitless adapter just kind of slides in to the other fitting with an O-ring. So know which kind of wellhead you have, so what you need to pull it out. We're lucky that our fitting is right up here and not 5 feet down in the well. So let's go show you what we're going to make. Now while we make our way to the shop, you might be thinking, how are you going to pull all that up if there's no electricity, no power, no anything? Well, we have the big gantry out in the barn that's got wheels on it with the chain hoist. We would roll that gantry out over the well, and we would use that chain hoist to pull the pipe out of the well. We'd have to disconnect it as it came up. So at the hardware store, we got a 1-inch nipple. I think this is like a 6-inch. We cut the threads off of one side, and then I have an eye that came on an adjustable, like a turnbuckle type thing. We've cleaned both of these things up. So we're going to get our welder, and we're going to make our own tool. So we'll do a real good bead all the way around here, and then all we have to do is screw this onto our wellhead. And then when we get our gantry crane out there, we put our hook through there, and we can pull our submersible pump out of our well. So let's get this made. All right, we got our pump removal tool made. So that's ready to rock. So now what are we going to do about a dip tube? Now obviously we can't just use a bucket like people back in the old days. We need something that's going to fit down that casing. Now, if you go to like Layman's, their website, they actually sell stainless steel dip tubes that you can buy, and we'll show you a picture of one of those. So you can see that dip tube costs $150, and maybe you also noticed that it's on back order. You can't even order it right now. So we're going to make our own dip tube, which you can do with fairly easy parts to get at your hardware store. So let's show you what we picked up. So these are the parts we picked up at the hardware store. First, we have a 1.25 inch piece of pipe, 5 feet long, because the inside diameter of our well, we can't get anything over 3 inches outside diameter down that well. So you have to consider all of your fittings as well. So along with our pipe, one of the most important things is what's called a foot valve. This is very similar to a foot valve. This is just a one-way check valve is all it is. See, there's a little flapper in there. And if you push on that flapper, it opens up, and then it doesn't let anything go back the other direction. So as this is lowered into the water, it'll allow water into the tube. But when you go to pull it out, the pressure of the water will close this flapper in here and lock the water in the tube. So to connect this to our pipe, we need our ABS, like waste connection here, fits on here real well. On the outside diameter, fits on that. And then on the other end, we're going to use just an 1.5 inch or 1.25 inch slip. And then on top of that, we've got this bell reducer. On top of the bell reducer, we're going to add a hook on here to attach a rope to we can dip this down in the well. So let's get all this together. I wanted to get a screen to screw on the bottom of this, which you can find just like a waste pump screen. You can screw on the end of there, but my hardware store didn't have any. So what we got was a metal cap. And we're going to drill a bunch of holes in this cap to act as a screen to keep larger items from getting in here into our little check valve. And that'll work just fine. And plus that'll add some weight to the bottom of our dip tube. So first thing I'm going to do is we'll get this over on the drill press, and we're going to put a whole bunch of holes in here. So we've gone with a 5/16 drill bit. We want our tube to fill fairly quickly, but we don't want it big enough to where there's going to be a bunch of debris getting in our tube. So I think 5/16 will do. You can see we have our cap well ventilated. So now that can be screwed on the bottom of our foot valve here. So we'll do that. All right, there's our bottom assembly on our dip tube. Always make sure your check valve's going in the right direction, but that's fairly easy. And this connection fits really well. You don't want to be having to crank these down really tight to get them to fit. This coupler is made for these, so it's snug going on. And then when you add the clamp with the nut driver here, this isn't coming off. I tried my best to pull that off. It doesn't come off. This pipe goes clear down into here. And then this pipe is step down inside. So it's got a little groove on there where that can't come out. But if you're really concerned about it, drill you a little hole and put a screw in there if you're worried about that slipping off. I think we're going to be fine. So now we're going to work on the top. We're going to glue this piece on the top, the other end of our tube. And we'll just standard PVC glue. So we have our top piece that we're going to put on the threaded piece we just glued on. We've got it necked down here a little bit so we have room to weld and it still gets down the pipe. The neck down opening won't matter. We'll still be able to pull the water out of that, no problem, and it'll vent air out just fine as the water fills in through the tube. So we're going to take a little bit of this 3/8 round stock. We're going to cut it off. We're going to bend it over and make a nice hoop to go around this that we can tie a rope onto. Got our hoop made. We just got to weld it on either side now and then we're done. Okay, we got our hoop welded on here for our rope. Just got to let this cool off and we can spin it on. While we're waiting for this part to cool, let's go out and test our foot valve on our dipper. So we have a bucket, not the cleanest water in the world. I wouldn't want to drink it, but it'll serve the purpose. So let's lower our tube in there. I can hear the water going in it already. So that should be full up to where it is. So we pull it out. No water other than just the water dripping off the outside of the dip tube that got wet. Apparently Ruby's thirsty. So let's see if we've got water coming out of here. And we do. So our foot valve works. So the next thing I want to check is how much water this whole 5-foot drip tube will hold. So I want to fill it completely full of water with our hydrant. So we've dumped the water into our measured container here. We're almost at a half a gallon, just under half a gallon with that one dip. So I'm happy with that. So that's basically one person's worth of drinking water every day. You'd probably want to do a little more. But we'll obviously have to dip this thing a couple times a day if we need more water. But I'm pleased with the outcome there. All right, we got our well dipper finished. I got my pump pulling tool just zip tied to the end of it. I'm going to put it up in the rafters here in the shop. Hopefully it'll stay there a good long time and we won't need it. And somebody in the future will say, what the heck is this thing? There it is, in case of emergency. Now the other piece of the puzzle, folks, is rope. You want to make sure you have enough rope to get down where you are or need to be for your water table. We've got 100-foot pieces of 3/8 poly rope, which is plenty. These are plenty heavy enough to pull our tube in and out of the well. I got them in different colors, so in case I got to put them together, I'll know every 100 feet where I'm at. But we can tie these end to end if need be to get down to where we need to be. But good thing to have on hand in an emergency is some rope. Well, folks, I'm glad to have that project done. It's going to give me good peace of mind now that we can get water if need be. And there's more things that I need to do to prepare around here. There's 3 or 4 other projects that I could think of right now that I need to finish that will help us be better prepared for long-term outages. And if we don't have electricity, we can still survive here on the homestead. There was people that moved out here in Nebraska long before electricity was ever here, and we have pretty harsh winters. They lived in a dirt house with a dirt floor and were able to survive, were able to make grow their own food and all that. But there's not a lot of those people that have those skills still around that could survive. Think about the people around you, the people that you're amongst every day. How many of them would be able to have the skills to survive if we've lost these simple things that we rely on every single day? Think of those people that wouldn't be able to charge their cell phones and how they would react to that. That's why I still have a landline phone here at the homestead, so we can contact people, because those don't rely on electricity. They're still going to work for the most part. But see those people now that are selling these walkie-talkies that are supposed to work nationwide in an emergency. Well, they use the cellular network, so they're only going to work as long as the cellular network is online. And people say, well, those cell phone towers, they have generators where if the power goes out, they'll still run. Well, there's not an infinite supply of fuel at those cell phone sites. When the generator runs out of fuel, your cell phone's not going to work anymore. So I hope this video has made you think about your preparedness. Run those contingencies through your head. What if I'm out of electricity? What am I going to do? What's the first thing I'm going to worry about? Do I have the stuff that I need? Now, I'm not here to scare you folks. I know a lot of this stuff sounds like tinfoil hat kind of thing, but I can guarantee you those people out of North Carolina that are still without power after all this time, because their infrastructure was completely wiped out. Like I said, there's just not stuff sitting around to replace all this stuff. So those people in Hawaii that were burned out, they could tell you that people just aren't going to show up. You know, the government's not going to be there to cater to your every need. It's going to be down to friends and neighbors helping you out. So one thing I want to turn you on to. Find yourself this book right here. If you have to buy it, download it, whatever you got to do. Get Kindle version of it or audiobook, whatever. This is a book of fiction, but this is hands down an exact roadmap of what will happen to society with just the simple loss of electricity. We are that fragile in this country that we rely so much on electricity. And this lays it all out. And it's a huge wake-up call. And I recommend this book. This book will make you think a little different about things that we take for granted every single day. And I think the way that they laid things out on this book, the way things will progress within the first day of not having electricity, if it's a widespread event, things will fall into chaos. And if you live in town, it's going to be every person for themselves. You can see what happened during the last big thing that we dealt with in this country, the latter part of 2019. I'm not going to say what it is, but YouTube doesn't like when you use those words. But look what happened to our food supply chain and all that. Things were just wiped out. And that wasn't because we lost electricity. I guarantee you losing electricity for an extended period of time is going to get a whole lot worse than that. And think about how that's going to come down. So that's one of the reasons why I live out here a long way from a lot of people, because there's going to be a lot of thievery going on, which we're prepared for as well. But the more people around you, the worse it's going to be. And again, I'm not trying to scare you, but think about those contingencies. Think about not being able to communicate. Think about your cell phone not working. Do you have numbers written down to where if you have a landline phone, do you even know the numbers of people to call? It used to be we all knew the phone numbers of everybody we knew. I was a walking telephone book. I could tell you anybody's number, but I can't even telling you my wife's right now. My mom's is the only one I know because I used to dial that back before I had a cell phone. So that's the only one that kind of sticks in my head. But just simple little things like that, folks. Run these things through your head and see how prepared you really are. I hope you are as prepared as you need to be if those times ever come where you're going to need to know some skills. People around don't have those skills no more. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. That's why we make these videos. And we hope you come back and see us here at Markelly Farm. And we hope that none of this is ever going to have to be used, but you got to know it anyway. See you next time.